If you have your Bibles, I'd like to invite you to turn with me in the Old Testament. We're still continuing in the book of Ecclesiastes. We have quite a long passage before us this morning. And if you don't have your Bibles, this is actually printed on an insert in your bulletin. Let me just set up. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. We're looking at verse 12 all the way down to chapter 2, verse 26. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 12. Listen out to God's word. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. And I have applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks, and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. I then considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. And there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For of the wise, as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me. For all is vanity and a striving after wind. I hated all toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night, his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also, I saw, is from the hand of the Lord. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. Thus far the reading of God's Word. Thanks be to God. Very strange and angsty this book is proving to be, isn't it? Very millennial. Actually. So we're continuing in the book of Ecclesiastes. And this is the second installment in our study. And I want to start out by contrasting to you the difference between 2D mazes, two-dimensional mazes, and three-dimensional mazes. You see, when I was a kid, I enjoyed doing 2D mazes, Sometimes it's behind a cereal box, sometimes they're in small booklets. But I always had the difficulty because I would start from the starting point and trace my way, and I'd usually end up in one of the dead ends. So I'd have to retrace and then try again. Okay? And because you don't want to write on it, you use your finger, so sometimes you end up in the same dead end. Okay? So that's how 2D's mazes are. But then one of my classmates actually said, you're doing it wrong. There's an easier way to do that. How? Well, you start at the end. Okay, so you start at the end and you trace your way to the starting point. Okay, so that's a trick which is easy to do if you're doing a 2D maze. Okay, but then when I got to high school, when we were in high school, we would have our annual school fair. And I believe beginning in grade 7, each class had to handle a booth. Okay, and I remember very distinctly when I was, I think in second or third year high school, our class was doing this. We called it ang Bastille ni B-Boy. Okay? We were it was like a prison booth. Okay. But we called it the Bastille because we were just learning about the French Revolution at that time. Anyway, and B-Boy is one of my classmates, if you're watching. So, Bastille ni B-Boy. But then this other class, one of the guys is the scion of a well-known construction company that starts with a D and ends with an I. Okay? And he had his family's workers actually come, and they were digging in the field, and they had these 2x2s, and you know what they were making? They had stakes in the ground, and then they covered it up with like canvas, tarpaulin. Okay, it was a 3D maze. You imagine that? We had our own 3D maze in a school fair. Now your trick in 2D, in the 2D maze won't work there. You cannot retrace from the end, right? And you'll always feel like a hamster in a box. Okay? You see, dead ends are trickier when you can't start from the finish point. And I think the 3D maze speaks a little more closely to our experiences in life, doesn't it? The 2D maze, it's just child's play. You could start from the end and work your way back to the start. But with a 3D maze, you can't do that. And soon enough, if you don't know your way, you're gonna find you're wasting a lot of time and energy and years. And before you realize it, you're already in experiencing your quarter life crisis, meeting one dead end after another dead end, right? See, dead ends are trickier when you can't start from the finish point. And if you don't know or figure out the solution soon, you might potentially waste a lot of time and effort. For the most part, life works this way. And hopefully we learn from our mistakes. This too is how science or the scientific method works, right? By trial and error. But occasionally, we come across other people's life experiences which we can learn from. And I think this is very valuable to us, to be able actually to learn from other people's experiences and mistakes. So I actually want to encourage the younger ones among you to look to the older ones among us. Maybe we're 10 years older than you. It only means we've had 10 years more of trial and error, and you can learn from our own experiences so that you won't have to do it again. We've met the dead end roads so that if you learn from us, you won't have to meet those dead end roads yourself. Now, we especially learn from other people's mistakes so that we won't need to learn the hard way. And this is how the book of Ecclesiastes actually works. The author, whom we have referred to as the preacher, the teacher, or Kohelet, that's a Hebrew name, presumably was an old man who has seen, heard, and tasted much of life, much of what life has to offer. And here he recounts his experiences in the quest for meaning under the sun. I want you to remember that phrase. It comes up over and over and over again. Under the sun. It's used repeatedly in this book as a key concept to describe the human quest for meaning apart from God. Now, last meeting, we referred to this as Kohelet's under the sun hypothesis. Essentially, what he was saying was, been there, done that, don't do it. You can't afford it anyway. And so, as we look into the book of Ecclesiastes these coming weeks, we want to examine this book to the end that we may learn from Kohelet's experiences. Now, another great book to learn from a negative example is the book of Jonah. Jonah is a prophet who does not preach with his words, but through his negative example. Almost died. So don't do what Jonah did. That's essentially what it was about, right? And here we're seeing the same thing. Kohelet's telling us, here are the things that I've done in my quest for meaning and significance. And I was rich, I could afford it, you can. So why don't you just learn from my experience, from my negative experience, so you won't have to do it yourself, okay? Today we're considering Kohelet's first attempts at finding meaning in the different pursuits that are under the sun. Now last week Kohelet gave us the under the sun hypothesis. He illustrated this with the one thing that adults who need to eat can easily relate with: work. But not just work, toil. The terrible reality of what millennials today would call adulting. So Kohelet gave us that illustration last week. Vanity of vanities, this whole adulting business. Essentially, that's what we saw last week. Now, Today I've entitled my sermon, Dead End Roads Under the Sun. And the reason for this is because, in case you have not picked up on it yet, Kohelet's blanket observation of life under the sun or apart from God is that it's vain, vanity, it's futile, it's meaningless, it's absurd, it's fleeting, it's insignificant. The Hebrew word is havel, vapor. But still, he takes about 12 chapters in this book to show us, section by section, why and how he's arrived at that conclusion. Isn't that great? Isn't he so generous to actually tell us, look, the next 12 chapters, these are all the paths that lead to a dead end. So read, meditate, and learn from his experience. And so there are 4 things today that we want to consider from this passage. It's a long passage, as I read it earlier. Okay? But so I have 4 points. Usually I have 3, but today we have 4. Okay? Number 1, why we search for meaning. Number 2, how we search for meaning. Number 3, where it all eventually leads us. And number 4, what hope, if at all, is there for us. Okay? So little children, as you're listening in and as you go home and talk to your parents, you want to ask them, Daddy, Mommy, what does Pastor mean about dead end roads? Okay? What does this have to do with life? And you could probably ask them about the word what, why, how, where, and what. Okay, that's underlined in your bulletin. Number 1, why we search for meaning. It's a good question, isn't it? Why do we search for meaning? Why does there seem to be this itch in us that just needs to be scratched? I believe all of you somehow are interested in the meaning of your life. Significance. Look at verses 12 to 15. Chapter 1. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I applied my heart to seek and to search out wisdom, all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. Here is Kohelet's self-introduction and explanation of his quest. His concern is to probe using wisdom all that is done under heaven or under the sun. But notice in chapter 1, verse 13, Kohelet called this task of questing for meaning an unhappy business that God has given, not only to himself but to all humanity. So there's this reality that we are all questing for meaning, looking for something beyond us. And so we see here that the reason we search for meaning is because we were made to do so. Humans were made for meaning, for significance. Maybe it's something that you don't necessarily know now or have now, but you're looking for it. We, of all God's creatures, have the capacity for reflection and abstraction. A capacity that puts us in a place where we can't just keep calm and carry on, knowing that our carrying on would eventually stop and we'd have to pass on. But is that really all that there is to it? Keep calm, carry on, pass on. Is that what human life is? We alone of all living creatures are able to ask the big questions of life. Is there more to living than just food, clothing, shelter, work, relationships, social media? One of my professors in undergraduate used to ask the question. He was a Filipino philosopher, so he would put the question this way. He would say, ang tao ba ay kumakain upang mabuhay o nabubuhay upang kumain? See, there's that question of, is there more to it? Is there more to just subsisting? So see, even the English language has that word. There's existence and then there's subsistence. And that gave rise to the whole field of existentialism. Existence precedes essence, they would say. So there's always that longing for the essential meaning, significance of all of life. Why is there something and not nothing? What is the meaning of life? What on earth am I here for? That last one is Rick Warren. We sense that there is more, but we can't quite put our finger on it. There's this unquenchable longing, a thirsting for something that will ultimately satisfy our curiosities. It's no wonder that there is no shortage of essays and books and theories exploring this very concern. But there's a problem, you see. Kohelet tells us it's all an exercise in futility. In verse 15. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. The earth is messed up. We are messed up. And there are just things that we can't ever make sense of. There's something wrong with the world, but we can't understand it or make it right. Reality, as we know it, is bent out of shape. And it can't be made straight again. You and I were born in this reality of a fallen world. And people sometimes tend to mouth the truism that death is just a part of life. Are you even listening to yourself? How could death be a normal part of life? No, it's not normal. It's not normal. You're not born into a normal world. Things are bent out of shape. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. You know there's something wrong, but you just can't put your finger on it. We sense that there is insufficiency and lack in the way things are. But we just can't say what. And this is why Kohelet says it's all vanity and a striving after wind. Chasing after the wind. Have you ever seen a dog chase its own tail? It's the most exciting thing ever. The dog discovers, hey, there's something behind me. And then it goes around and it chases and around, until finally it catches it. And then what? It lets go. It's done its purpose. It catches the tail. It lets go. After 2 minutes, it's chasing its tail again. It's like that. It's vanity. Chasing after wind. That's just how this quest under the sun is like, Kohelet tells us. Yet we continue on this quest. We have no choice. Having a sense that we are destined for much more, we long and yearn for significance. Faced with the daunting reality that we will never truly know, yet we press on to grab hold of that elusive key to existence. Somehow, God has placed in us an urge to find things out, a quest for that which is greater than us. And this is why we search for meaning. Point number 1. Number 2, how we search for meaning. There are 3 things that Kohelet explores here that oddly enough seem to correspond with 3 things too that moderns or postmoderns seem to gravitate toward in the universal quest for meaning. Also a story of my life when I was in the wilderness. Right? Number 1, philosophy. Number 2, pleasures. And number 3, productivity. Okay? So how do we search for meaning? 3 areas. Philosophy, pleasures, productivity. First, there's philosophy. Kohelet does not use the term philosophy. Okay? That wasn't in existence during this time. But rather he uses the word wisdom. Look at verses 16 and 17. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after wind. But while Kohelet says he applied his heart to knowing wisdom, he also tried to understand madness and folly. It's interesting, isn't it? He's a wise man, and a wise old man. He says, I've tried the path of wisdom, but just for good measure, I've also tried the path of madness and folly. Later on, he says, later on he would say, wisdom is better than folly, right? In the next chapter, verse 13, 17. And so he tries to find meaning in philosophy and information. And indeed, there is much in the exercise of philosophy that is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, and Coelho's not saying that wisdom or philosophy is bad. There is much to learn from philosophy. Even just the discipline of philosophizing in itself is of some virtue. Indeed, the very meaning of the word philosophy, philosophia, is the love of wisdom, the search, the quest for wisdom. But unfortunately, there is also much folly in philosophy. And that's just the reality. There's good and there's bad. You see, philosophy in its most basic sense is an attempt to explain reality, to make sense of what is. It starts off from our first point. Why we search for meaning? Because there is that longing in us to understand, and therefore philosophy. Okay? Now, philosophy in its most basic sense is an attempt to explain reality, to make sense of what is. So essentially you can say philosophies, all of it, are theories of reality. However, while there are many helpful things that philosophers and philosophy has to say, there are also many foolish things that many philosophers have tried to say in the past. Actually, not just tried, they actually said them. Take, for example, the pre-Socratic philosophers. Okay? The pre-Socratic philosophers, these were the early Greeks, who tried to explain reality by suggesting that the logos, that's a term that they employ, the logos, or the underlying substance from which all things proceed, is this or that substance. Now, those of you who took Philosophy 101, you will remember the name Thales of Miletus. Thales, for his part, was known to be the father of Western philosophy. And he said the logos, or the substance from which all things proceed, is coffee? No, water. Thales says it's all water. Now, how did he arrive at that conclusion? Well, he says, because after the rain, frogs would appear. And therefore, he concluded these frogs must have come out of the water. Okay? Why? Now, it's silly, it's foolish to us now. Nowadays, when you after the rain, you talk with the person in front of you at the MRT and say, haba ng pila, no? Alam mo ba kung saan galing mga palakad? Water. That's actually what Thales was saying. Okay? It's silly, it's foolish to us. But in his time, it was a revolutionary concept. In Thales' time, I kid you not. But this example simply shows us that as far as humans are concerned, there is no such thing as foolproof wisdom or knowledge. Did you catch that? As far as human beings are concerned, there's no such thing as foolproof wisdom or knowledge. In the final analysis, human wisdom is unreliable because of one very important component, the human component. Consider this, and I've used this illustration before, but I love this illustration. Think back to 15 years ago. Okay? Some of you are 25, so when you were 10. Some of you are 35 like me, so when I was 25. Some of you are, the 40 is not here, but when it was 30, okay? Think back, 15 years pala, 15 years ago. So even younger. I'm sure You, sir, when you think back to the 15-year, the you of 15 years ago, you would say, boy, what a fool. How reckless and misinformed and immature I was 15 years ago. Would you agree? Yeah. I would agree. I would say that of me 15 years ago. Oh, you should have seen me 15 years ago. You might not have been a friend. You might not have wanted me as a friend. Now, 15 years ago, I was a fool. And so were you 15 years ago. You 15 years from now, here's the news flash. 15 years from now, the you plus 15 will look back to this present moment and think the same thing. Which means, 15 years from now, Nico, you're going to say, oh, Nico in 2017, what a fool, how reckless, misinformed, and immature. You know what that means? We're fools even now. Right now. So why even bother keeping up with information? Alvin Toffler says, information is power. There's some wisdom in that. It may be, though, for a certain generation, but may not be for a later one. And as far as information goes, sometimes there's truth in the saying, ignorance is bliss. Some people hate that. I always use that when I'm eating lechon. Ignorance is bliss. And it could be argued, if you think about early generation, it could be argued that many earlier generations actually died happier, not knowing the ill effects of smoking, of radiation, of opium, or even ingesting what we would now consider to be poison as medicine. This is what Kohelet says as well in verses 17 and 18. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly, and perceived that this also is but a striving afterward. And then there's the aphorism. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. The Chinese have an old proverb. I'll translate it to you because only 50% of you can understand Chinese. It says, ignorance of one thing averts 100 issues. Ignorance of one thing averts 100 issues. There's a concept, I think, in law called plausible deniability. If you don't know the mechanics of what really happened, then you could deny it. So your alibi. Okay? But see, philosophy as a means towards finding meaning and significance is essentially a dead-end road. And that's what Kohelet tells us. I've tried that. Been there, done that. I've tried wisdom. I've even tried being foolish. Wisdom is sometimes foolish. Dead-end road number one. What's the second way? How do we find meaning? Pleasures. Okay? Look at chapter 2 now. I said to my heart, verse 1, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. Now, first things first, Kohelet was a very rich and powerful man. Okay? That is, he was able to afford this experiment that most of us, most of his original readers, most likely don't have the kind of resources to dispose. Secondly, this experiment was carried out by one whose wisdom stayed with him. You see this in verse 3 and verse 9. So again, he says essentially to us, been there, done that, don't do it. Okay? Is that clear enough? So we're going to talk about pleasure. Been there, done that, don't do it. Kohelet was able to do it because he was well-resourced and his wisdom was with him the whole time. Okay? We just established earlier that we are all fools today. Okay? So don't do it. But what can we learn here? In his quest for meaning and significance, Kohelet seems to have engaged in what is known as, in philosophy, as hedonism. Okay? But not the Piperian version. The Epicurean one. Okay? The life strategy that basically says, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we will die. After all, he says, in verse 3, life is short. Life is short. I search with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me to wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for children of man, to do under heaven during the few days of their life. Kohelet engages in a no-holds-barred pursuit of pleasure and happiness. Take note of verse 10. He says, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Kohelet indulged in himself in all forms of pleasure, some more harmless than others. Creative activities, gardening, aquaponics, and building projects, building cells siguro, okay, on the one hand. He tried it all. On the other hand, sex, alcohol, mega partying. Kohelet did not keep himself from any pleasure, he says. He was in it for the experience, the thrill of it all. And this is something that is very prevalent today as well. Some people seek happiness or fulfillment in their craft. They try to concentrate all their energies at creative output that will bring them satisfaction, meaning, and worth. You and I are living in such a great moment in history because of all this resurgence of craft this, craft that, right? Craft coffee, manual pour, attention to detail, specialty grade, all that stuff, and then you have all the other craft beers, microbreweries. It's all, it's all about getting your hands in there, focusing on the artisanal stuff, artisanal this, artisanal that. Now others live the good life, measuring their worth by the number of arrival and departure stamps on their passports, or the number of wine bottles in their underground cellars, how many single malt whiskeys in their liquor cabinets, right? Or the many different gastronomic adventures they've been on. Nowadays, if you have a camera, if you have a blog, and you are a little chubby, you're automatically a food critic. Still others, presumably with more money in their pockets or their parents' pockets, live the life of a party animal, searching for satisfaction and meaning with myriad of sensual and material exploits. Hashtag millennial rich kids. The younger brother in the parable of the prodigal comes to mind. You see, the younger brother, he was tired of working the field. Goes to his father one day, he says, "Dad, that's not pretending. You don't like me, I don't like you. I like your money. Why don't you just divide the property? Give me what's coming to me. You're gonna die anyway." It's essentially what he wanted. He did not want the father, just the father's money, which he spent every centavo on in reckless living. That's how Luke puts it. But here again, Kohelet's refrain we see in verse 11. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind. And there was nothing to be gained under the sun. Dead end road number 2. Now let's go to dead end road number 3, productivity. One final way Kohelet demonstrates to us how we search for meaning is through our work, our toil, our productivity. That's in verses 18 to 26. Now although these sections seem more like a rant than a mini narrative about the search for meaning. That's why, I think it wasn't Solomon, because how could he have experience being, in a worker's mode? Anyway, let's not talk about authorship right now. But, it sounds more like a rant than a mini narrative about the search for meaning. Still, the idea of work and toil is shot through in this section. This is perhaps the most common one that we see among the more responsible lot of people today. So if you're not the squanderer, maybe you're not the younger brother, maybe you're the older brother. Work hard. Father, I've always been with you. I've always obeyed your commands. You never gave me a go. So maybe that's you. You're doing your work, you're doing everything, and that's how you're trying to find meaning and significance. Consider too how our line of work tends to define not only the way other people perceive us, but also how we think of ourselves. Consider how conversations naturally progress between two people who have just met. After the initial highs and hellos and other pleasantries, how's the weather, it's hot always. More often than not, the discussion quickly turns to, so, what do you do? What's your work? Where do you work? How long have you been at your particular work? Oh, you work in government. Are you corrupt? Okay, so, workaholism is pandemic. That's the point. Everybody is, it's the reality of adulting. You need to work if you want to eat. And it's something that is not easy to spot. Workaholism is not something that is easy to spot. Maybe you're thinking, you're justifying all that old overtime work that spills over to your Lord's Day or eats at your Saturday rest, so that you're late on the Lord's Day or not able to come on the Lord's Day, with saying, but I'm doing my work not as to man, but as to the Lord. See, workaholism, it's not easy to spot. Our culture rewards and praises hard work. But sometimes work becomes so much part of our lives that the drive to succeed, the drive to earn millions or even billions, the drive to be recognized in what we do, actually begins to enslave us. We are consumed in our work, and before we know it, our time is up. And this was Kohelet's bitter reflection. He says, we work and work and work, we even lose sleep and are fatigued over it, but one day it will have been time to stop and to leave behind all that we have worked so hard for. This is especially poignant for successful people who built an empire. Many, when they reach retirement age, encounter this dilemma. Whether, number one, either they don't have children who are capable enough to run the business and therefore might just ruin the empire. Or number two, they have children who are just not interested in the business and want to pursue other things instead, forcing them to leave their business in the hands of other people or even having to sell. Think back to Abraham. He was saying to God, I have all this stuff. I don't have a son. My heir is Eliezer, an outsider. Or they have children who are more than willing to take over the business because all they are after is the money and will soon squander everything and, like number one, simply obliterate all that they've worked hard for. It's what Kohelet's concerned here. Have a look in verses 20 to 21. He says, so I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What is a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. You work. Fathers, you work so hard, thinking you want to provide for your children, and your children grow up to be fools and they will just squander everything. What is it all for? Dead end road, number 3. Third point, where it all eventually leads. So what we've seen so far in our second point, we've seen why we search for meaning in point number 1, and then we observe through Kohelet's example in point number 2, 3 ways or hows by which we search for meaning, each one having Kohelet's summary pronouncement of vanity or striving after wind. Philosophy, a dead-end road. Pleasures, a dead-end road. Productivity, a dead-end road. So where does it all eventually lead us? What is Kohelet's somber conclusion? If all these options ultimately lead to a dead-end road, then what is there for us under the sun? Look at verses 14 and 17 in chapter 2. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For of the wise as of the fool there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is under the sun was grievous to me. For all is vanity, a striving after wind. You're wise, your kapitbahay, your neighbor is not wise. He's gonna die, you're gonna die. You work very hard, your neighbor is palamunin, it doesn't work. He's gonna die, you're gonna die. You enjoy the good things in life. You're exposed to the high life. You know all the exquisite tastes the world has to offer. Your neighbor only knows fishball, isaw, tuyo. He's gonna die, you're gonna die. I hate life, Kohelet says. Makes no sense, it's futile, it's vanity. That's his conclusion. If all these options ultimately led to a dead-end road, then what's there for us under the sun? If this is all there is, if all roads lead inevitably to the grave, then there's nothing left but despair. You know, the secular humanistic goal of human flourishing. Kohelet will say to that, pooh-pooh that. You're all gonna die, I'm gonna die, it's meaningless. Human flourishing, whatever. There's nothing left under the sun but despair. But wait a minute, some might say. Well, Kohelet isn't really that negative. And so some have tried to read chapter 2, verses 24 to 26 as a positive note to this section, as a mention of God. I tend to disagree. See, while Kohelet does hint at God's existence, exercise of absolute control over all, look how he puts it. Verse 24 to 26. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. How did he describe it? He says, the one who eats and drinks and finds enjoyment in his toil, he says, there's nothing better. It's like saying it's not bad. It's not good, it's not bad. It's still not positive. Even in English, the term nothing better. It hints at that's not the ideal. It's not good. It's not a cheerful thing. This reflection too is concluded by the somber refrain. This also, verse 24-26, is vanity and striving after wind. So Kohelet really presents us with a very gloomy and depressing portrait here of life under the sun. It's deceptive, isn't it? It's gloomy, it's sad, it's dark, but under the sun. Under the light of a lesser star. We have a drive to find meaning, and so we try to find it in all these things. But ultimately, life lived under the sun or apart from God could only lead to dead ends. All there is vanity, despair, a striving after wind. So, is there really no hope left for life in the here and now? I hope you're asking that same question. Is there really no hope left for life in the here and now? I hope you're asking that question because the answer is yes. There is no hope left for life lived in the here and now, under the sun, apart from God. Apart from God, all is havel, meaningless. This is life under the sun. And so far we've considered 3 out of our 4 points this morning. Good thing there's a 4th point left to consider. What hope, if at all, is there? According to Kohelet, nothing. Under the sun, none. But have a look in chapter 2, verses 20 to 21 again. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. Kohelet calls vain and a great evil the idea that a person should exercise wisdom, knowledge, and skill in order to secure an inheritance that will only be left behind to someone who did not toil for it. Now, fathers and parents, maybe you can't see it in your children because you love them so much. I can't see myself actually saying these things that I'm working hard, I'm trying to build a future, but then Knox might be a fool and squander everything. Katie might just run away from home and do her own thing. She has that propensity. But think about, and maybe some of you here, you're not parents, so you're saying, it's not me, I'm not married, I don't have kids. Think about your workplace. Before you, in your work, you're trying to build something, you build a platform, a project, a system, and then when you leave, it's not going to be yours. Somebody else is going to benefit from it. What if that person's a fool? We see that in government, don't we? Every new administration, they're all scrapped. Even the good stuff is scrapped. Because it's all about me making a name for myself. Fool after fool after fool. Kohelet calls it vain and a great evil. This is indeed a grievous thing. If you are on the losing end, if you stand to lose all that you have, all that you've worked for, the fruit of your entire life's work, your best years, your best efforts, your sweat and blood, all of it to be simply left behind to an undeserving fool who has never done a thing to deserve even a centavo, and who likely will just squander it all away. Kohelet says that's futile, it's a great evil. It's another dead end. But think with me here, what if there's a situation where the inheritance to be received is one that can transform a directionless fool into a person of sense and purpose? What if there's a situation where it's not a dead end, but actually a road that leads to life? What if I told you that many centuries later, a man meeting Kohelet's description here, one who works hard, builds something really good. He actually comes along and labors hard his entire life to toil with wisdom and knowledge and skill in order that fools might receive what they did not toil for. And what if we are those fools, and by this man's work, hope, life, and meaning are extended to us? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that just give a whole new significance that goes beyond the futility of life under the sun? The good news for us today, for you and for me, is that this is not simply a question of what if. There indeed was a man centuries later who came and who suffered an entire life of discomfort, poverty, and humiliation. The Bible describes him as one who was acquainted with grief. Indeed, there was a man who lived like that, and whose brief and difficult life on earth ultimately led to death on a cross. No one has ever lived more wisely, more purposely, more determinedly than Jesus. He came and did a perfect work that only He can do. He perfectly obeyed the requirements of God's law, but suffered the full penalty of God's hell, so that we who are guilty sinners may have an inheritance that goes beyond death. To build an empire, to toil, and to amass this wealth, this prosperity, only to leave it to a fool is a grievous thing. If you're the one who's about to leave it to a fool. But Jesus did not see it that way. He accomplished what is required. He lived a perfect life. He paid the debt of sin. And He now inherits all the spiritual blessings in the heavenlies. For what? For fools like you and I. To leave it to us, to transform us by that great act. Jesus perfectly obeyed the requirements of God's laws, but suffered the full penalty of God's hell, so that we who are guilty sinners may have an inheritance that goes beyond death. So why even bother trying to find meaning and purpose in worldly wisdom, in the pursuit of answers in philosophy? It's a dead-end road. Jesus is the eternal Word, the Logos, who was with God in the beginning and who Himself is God. He is not the stuff by which all things are made. He is the one who made all things. Why do we bother trying to find meaning and pleasure and the good life? It is a dead-end road. Jesus is the one who sits at the right hand of the Father, and of whom the psalmist sings, "You have made known to me the paths of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand, where Christ now sits, are pleasures forevermore." Psalm 16, verse 11. Jesus is our joy, and His coming was not for our harm. He says this Himself in John's Gospel. He says, "I came that they might have life and have it abundantly." John chapter 10, verse 10. Why do we even seek our worth and significance in our workaholism, in our toil? Hoping against hope that our daily grind will find us storing up treasures and exercising productivity that really matters, that really does not matter in the face of death. It is a dead-end road. Jesus is the only one whose finished work truly lasts. His finished work on the cross is the only work that ever matters, the only one acceptable to God. Yet out of His great generosity, Jesus extends this very same work to all who repent and believe in Him. To all who recognize the futility of seeking meaning, significance, and acceptance in anything apart from Him, He gives the chance to be children of God by exchanging His perfect work for their empty and worthless striving. Only when we let go with both hands all the vanity, all the vain things that we anchor our hope upon, and cling to Jesus completely, will we truly find life. Will we truly find hope and meaning. Only when we are in Jesus and He in us will we realize that we are indeed made for wisdom, pleasure, and work. Jesus changes everything. Why do we search for meaning? We were made that way. Where do we look for meaning? In philosophy, in pleasure, in our pursuits. It's all dead end road. If you're going about it under the sun, just doing that, one day you're just going to be like your neighbor who dies 6 feet under the ground. But Jesus died so that you might have life. And so that in Him your life now lived makes sense and has meaning. Now you can pursue true wisdom. Now you can really enjoy the good things that come from the Father above. And now you can do your work really in a lasting and significant way. But only first if you realize that you are the fool who inherits that inheritance that Jesus alone did. And so, my trust this morning, we consider dead end roads under the sun. Again, we must look beyond the sun to the Son. Because He is not a dead end road. He says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. Let's pray. Our gracious Lord, we give You thanks for this time meditating upon this section in Kohelet, in Ecclesiastes. Lord, as we read through it, as we consider what Kohelet says, it is very depressing. It is very gloomy. But this is the reality. This is the dose of reality that we need to be reminded of. There are many pursuits under the sun, but all of them lead to dead end roads. And so, Lord, point us to Your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Because He is the way. In Him there is life. In Him there is meaning. In Him everything changes and everything makes sense. So I want to ask, Lord, today, as we consider these things, even as we go backward to our respective vocations tomorrow, or even tonight as we go home, as we reflect upon these things, Lord, cause us to not live as those who are under the sun, but to live as those who are in Your Son. We pray all these things for Your glory in Jesus' name.